We got big things happening on the PTR. Probably went a little unnoticed due to the TBC spam on Wowhead, but this is actually probably the biggest build that we've had on the PTR for things that I cover and I'm interested in. So let's talk a little bit about what we have here. First things first, can't ignore it. Anti-magic zone has been nerfed dramatically. Insane nerf, actually. They changed its cooldown from 3 minutes, or from 2 minutes to 3 minutes, so 1 minute longer. And it's now going to only absorb a set amount of damage. Okay, so let's talk about what that actually means, and I'll give my thoughts on that. First of all, when we were talking about anti-magic zone being nerfed, something they had discussed in various interviews, I completely agree it should be nerfed. Okay. But the thought, like, people were like, oh, maybe they change it to like a 3 or maybe even a 5 minute CD. My initial reply to that was like, that's not going to do anything. You probably, the groups that really abused it, they were bringing like 8 DKs. Like, so it didn't matter how long the CD was. They were going to make use of it in a variety of manners throughout an encounter as often as they needed it anyway. So my suggestion was always to make it only absorb a certain amount of damage. That's how it used to work. If you remember back last time it was in the game, which I believe was Mop. And I don't remember exactly, but I think it was only for like Frost DK or something at the time too. So that's how it should work. That's how it should be. But it is a very small amount of damage. Okay, so let's quickly go in game here. So we have the spell now on a 3 minute CD, which is probably going to hurt for 5 mans. But the bigger thing is 79,470 damage absorbed. Okay, so let's talk about what that number means. First of all, it's a function of my health pool and my versatility, apparently. So a DPS DK, it's going to be substantially lower, and we're going to switch to show you that right now. Just switch to Frost, and you'll see I go from 66,000 HP. This is at 7940, and now it goes all the way down to 52,000. Just by switching specs. I didn't switch gear or anything. I don't think that would really matter, but I didn't switch anything else. Just by switching specs, we lose, 20 some thousand damage absorbed on this. Now, it might sound like, oh my god, it's just one health pool worth of absorption. That's horrible. And it does, it's not, you're not necessarily wrong, but just remember that this is not just going to absorb the first 79,000 damage that comes out. It's going to only be 20% of the magic damage taken. So I think on a fight like Blood Counselor or Council Blood, whatever it's called, that would probably be a time when it would certainly absorb more than that. And it will go away almost immediately. And you probably want to not use it as you're not going to get as much out of it, so you're not going to be able to rely on it as much. But honestly, I don't think in 5-mans this is even gonna impact it. Like I'm not sure it will, to be honest, because I don't ever really take any damage at all. Like so I don't know how that's calculated, but I don't ever need AMZ, so I could even just stand out of it if it's that important. But I'm wondering how other things like other damage reductions and AMS and stuff work for it, because now that it absorbs a flat amount of damage, it seems very interesting. And one experiment I want to try right now is I'm going to use Vamp Blood, and let's see if it changes. It does. Oh my god. Okay, so it changes, goes all the way to 103k. Okay. So we're only going to gain more health. We're only going to gain more versatility. So this number is able to swing this wildly, and it does. It's based on your current health. Blood DK is probably pretty clear, man. I'll tell you, if you can use if you could use Vamp Blood before you use AMZ, it's probably gonna last the full 8 seconds in most scenarios, other than very specific raid bosses and stuff. So the thing that makes me I'm disappointed in this, and it's why change the cooldown of it? You know what I mean? I don't really get that. But I totally agree. It needed to be nerfed. It was a huge outlier. We still have a big problem with rogues, okay? So this is not a problem with DKs. This is a problem with rogues, if you ask me. Every other class has something. DK basically brings nothing to any fight that has no need for death grip. And, unless you're the only battle res in the group, like I am half the time, I don't. It doesn't really bring anything. You know what I mean? So AMZ is needed for the kit. It didn't need to be as strong as it was, but it was needed, and I'm not gonna say that I regret it coming to the game, obviously. But you really have a big problem with rogues outside of 5-mans. Like, outside of 5-mans, they bring absolutely nothing to most fights in PvE. So I hope that the next step is figure something out there, because this is really not acceptable. I don't know. I like the idea that they had buffs coming back. If you remember in the Legion beta, I doubt anybody who does, but in the Legion beta, every single class had a buff. DK's had a leech buff, or maybe that was BFA beta. I think it was BFA beta. Every single class had a buff. Legions, or the artifact ability from Legion with the leech, that was basically just the buff that Death Knight brought. I was like, that's a great idea. Just give every class something, so no matter what, you're like, well, what do we want? Do we want the health? Do we want the leech? Do we want attack power? Like, you have some value there. But anyway, that's my rant on that. So we have a lot more to talk about besides that. First of all, some DPS buffs to Mistweaver, and I'm gonna tell you, if they continue to buff Mistweaver, I don't know where it's gonna end up, because it does seem like they are a huge outlier on the bottom end right now, especially for 5-mans. But whether or not they could buff them strong enough to get them out of that hole is a great question. I'd like to see them try, because I think it'd be nice to see something new coming out of Mistweaver. But anyway, not really our bread and butter. Instead, we'll talk about this. So, very, 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 very interesting stuff here. Let's make it very reviewable. Long story short, you can now re-roll your key. Now, I've been asking for this for a long time. I had like a 5,000 word post drafted on the forums, got zero attention. Famously, a longtime viewer, Sap at the time, he co-opted that. But we had, made videos on the topic. I'd done everything in my power to try to get the info out there, and a lot of people disagreed with how I had the solution. This is Blizzard's solution, and I think it's a lot simpler and more straightforward than mine. So, first of all, this guy is Tashup. I don't know, like, if that's supposed to be some kind of joke or what, but anyway, we'll now offer Keystone to players who don't have a Keystone, as long as they've completed at least one Shadowlands dungeon on Mythic Plus difficulty. I don't know what the purpose of that is. Like, that doesn't seem to make any sense to me. It makes me think there's going to be a reason that guy exists. Like, do keys really, like, do players really do that few keys that you would have to add a mob like this to the game? Maybe. But anyway, he also will spawn at the end of Mythic Plus dungeons that are completed before the time limit is reached. He will offer a one-time Keystone exchange to any player whose current Keystone is at or below the level of the dungeon that was recently completed on time. Keystones that are higher level than the dungeon that was recently completed on time cannot be traded, including the Keystone that was used to start the run. So, that first of all, that doesn't even make sense. Including the Keystone that was used to start the run. So, like, I guess they're just putting a blanket thing on that. Like, no matter what, the Keystone that it was used to start the run cannot be traded. It has to be somebody else's key. Which, okay, that's a bit strange. But the goals for me is just how accessible it is. Because this sounds like a bit... it sounds like it's going to be difficult to do. Let's put it this way. But we'll say that it is a very elegant solution to this, because it encourages people to finish keys. Unfortunately, it also encourages them to time keys, as you have to actually upgrade it, right? I believe that's what it says, right? Yes, before the time limit is reached, that are completed before the time limit is reached. So it should slightly encourage people not to leave 5 minutes into the key, but probably not. People still are only going to care about time for whatever reason, and this will not necessarily change that. But that being said, it hopefully will attract more people to a dungeon. Like, for example, let's talk about some examples here. So now, with the way Keystone delivery works on Tuesday, on the reset day, it's often that, you have the same level that you're progressing on now. It's like, in the past, it used to be like, oh, well, we got a 20 done, but it was out of time. So, yeah, whatever. We're not going to get a 20 this week. No problem. We got a 19. So like if you get a single 20 done, you get a 20 and blah blah blah. And that's pretty cool because it's now like you don't have that weird thing where it's like, I did it 22 at a time, but my best time was like a 19, so you know, whatever. Now it's a lot more, you get the key that you should have and you get the key that you're progressing on. So the likelihood that my key would need to be changed is low anyway. I barely do it. But, you know, on top of that, you always pretty much have a key that you should have now. So I don't think like it would be hard to change it if you wanted to. But if you really want to and you don't think you can simply lower the key, right? Provided they haven't changed that somewhere in the back end. Yeah, you can just lower your key. Like if you really want a different dungeon, I know people out there like who like literally hate running 1 or 2 dungeons. It's not abnormal to me, but I think the risk is that you might still get the same dungeon. I mean, it doesn't seem. I don't know. We don't know for sure. I will post this in the description here because Wowhead has an article where it says it's still unclear if one time means once per week or once per dungeon completion. But as soon as we confirm how exactly this Keystone Exchange scenario functions, we'll be sure to update this post. So I'm going to put this in the description just so it's there and you can bookmark it. But yeah, I have a feeling that this is going to be a very talked about feature, and I bet there will be something that is disappointing to people. I bet it is going to be the fact that you can get the same keystone again, because it's not going to change the affixes. So yeah, if you trade a Sanguine Depths in for Sanguine Depths, I bet a lot of people aren't going to be too satisfied with that. But that, provided that it does work that way, I mean, that does make sense. It's just getting a whole new keystone, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, you have to actually have to time the run, and it has to be at least at or below the level of the dungeon that was recently completed. Which I don't know. That part doesn't make a lot of. I mean, like, why does that matter? I'm not exactly sure. But I guess it's just so you're not going into like 2s or something like that. Yeah, I guess that's probably why. Yeah, it's so like you're not walking into 2s and just upgrading it and then trying to change your key. But it's a very interesting concept. They've done a lot of crazy things with you know, now they're adding score and stuff like this. Also, slight nod to this. If you've unlocked layer 9 of Torghast, you'll now be able to transfer Soul Ash at a slight loss to another character on their account. That's players on their account by seeking out Bonesmith, Heimer, and Korthia. So Korthia is the new zone. I don't know. Bonesmith Heimer is actually a soulbind, so I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, I don't plan on doing this, but it's pretty freaking cool, honestly. I like the concept. It just depends on by what a slight loss means and how much you need and everything. So crazy stuff. Let me know what you think. I feel like there was something else too. The whole like extended maintenance thing got out of control yesterday. Oh yeah, here we go. Great Vault. One more thing as well. When you don't like any of your Great Vault options in 9.1, you can now choose between 3 attendance tokens. These attendant tokens can be turned into Kotold, the nearby vendor, for various rewards. You can either get Soul Ash, Stygia, or Reservoir Anima, which is awesome. I actually quite like that. And it looks like you can buy them individually because they're 3. You get 3, so you either get 1500 Stygia, 750 Soul Ash, or what's that? I don't know. Can't do math quick. Yeah, so that's cool. You get to choose one or maybe all 3 or whatever you like, and it's a nice change for sure. Vaults has only gotten better in 9.1. So anyway, let me know what you think. Very interested. I simply had to make this video today, so that will push streaming off. I knew even if I did stream today, it would be like literally just constant questions about the AMZ change or the Keystone change. So that's it. We'll be back soon, and maybe more stuff coming on the PTR. Who knows?